welcome to my channel. This is an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and don't forget to click the little bell so that you'll get notified of future videos. Please feel free to share my videos on your social media, and I hope you enjoy the video which follows. Well, to start this harvest video off, I'm up at the community garden and I'm going to see what I've got for potatoes. I don't think I've even taken 10% out of here. I've only taken a few plants, and earlier on in the summer I was reaching down under the straw and stealing a few potatoes rather. But I don't know. I don't think I've taken 10% of them, so we'll see what's here anyway. Well, I think that's most of the russets, except for a few more that are planted right under where they're lying. If I remember rightly, I had a few seed potatoes left over, and I put like a thin row down through the center. So I will get those into the tote that I brought and carry on. Well, that's it for the russets. Now to see what I've got here for Yukon Gold. There's just one row of those. Well, that is the Yukon Gold harvest, other than what I've already taken out of here. Not a lot, but as you can see, some of them are a nice size. They'll all be enjoyed. Well, that is the potatoes harvested. I won't be weighing them. I have no idea what's there. 25, 30 pounds maybe. I don't know. I'll lift it and see, but I think... yeah, 20, 25 pounds I would think, but I'm not going to weigh them. These will be spread out to dry on my basement floor where it's cool and dark. You don't want them in sunlight outdoors or anything, because they start to turn green quickly and then you can't eat them. And once they have completely dried, I will store them for the winter. I don't know how long that will last me, but quite a while. I'm not a big potato eater anyway, so that's a good harvest. I'm pleased with it. Well, I picked my squash, such as they were, not a lot of them, that's for sure. On the very end there on the right, that is the one baby blue Hubbard. I have a second one, it's even smaller than that, so I've left it for the time being. And then the next three are black futsu, the Japanese squash. And the funny thing next to the last black futsu, I'm still thinking is a pumpkin. Just on the very top of it, you can see where it's starting to turn a little bit orange. In the past, anyway, with pumpkins, if I pick them at this stage, they eventually do turn completely orange. And then, moving on, are my Hokkaido pumpkin, or red curry squash, or Hokkaido pumpkin, whichever you prefer to call them. It's an Asian, a Japanese pumpkin or squash. I tend to use it mostly as a squash, and I think I did try once. It suggests in various recipes that the skin is so thin you can cook it and eat skin and all, but I didn't care for that, and I tend to steam it or whatever and take it off the skin. And the very end there are my spaghetti squash. I think I have found everything. These were picked yesterday, and this morning I found another Hokkaido pumpkin, so They may be more hiding where the veins ran off, the vines rather ran off somewhere, but I think that's certainly most of what I got out of the squash patch. I never know how many hazelnuts there will be until the leaves start to fall. They're always concealed. I can see where I'm standing here several clusters. That's one that has 3 in that cluster. I followed some instructions online a few years ago that said to pick them early if you're worried about the squirrels or whatever getting them. I can hear a squirrel sort of chirping in the background here. That did not work for me. Yeah, eventually the shells turned brown after you pick them, but the nut inside had not fully developed, so I leave them on the tree and take my chances. So far I have never seen any evidence of squirrels taking them here. We just have the small red squirrel, which I could probably still handle these things, but they're not common here at all. Like, I wouldn't be at all surprised that my hazelnut trees are the only ones here on the island. I've never heard of anybody else having one, so maybe a squirrel doesn't recognize it as food. At any rate, I have quite a few of them on the tree. I just don't know how many yet. Moving on to harvesting my Asian pears. It's getting colder here every night. It was 5 degrees earlier this morning. Forecast to go to 2 degrees overnight tonight. This is the 19th of September, by the way, when I'm making these clips. If it goes to 2 degrees, there's a good chance that we'll have frost in some of the low-lying areas. So I'm going to pick my pears. A year ago or 2 years ago, I thought if I thinned them out on the tree, they would develop larger. That didn't work. They still just had these small pears, so I don't know how big or old the tree has to be before you get a good-sized Asian pear out of it. They're round like an apple, if that's what you're looking at. They look like small apples, but they are delicious, very crisp and sweet, and I really like the things, but I just wish they were larger. Well, there is my pear harvest. I will enjoy those. Interesting, when I got over in there to pick them, one of the smaller branches on the pear tree had been broken off, or almost completely broken off, so I went and got my pruning shears and pruned that off. And then I noticed down on the ground were several pears that were 3/4 eaten. So something had been climbing my pear tree and picking pears and managed to break one of the smaller branches. I don't know. I have both raccoons and porcupines here. Raccoon's bad enough, but I'm scared Angel will run afoul of a porcupine at some time, but so far she's been fortunate. But I don't know, I was looking on for recipes this morning of what to do with the Asian pears. Pick a relatively good-sized one here to try. Oops, where are you? There you are. But they are small, they're not, you know, an Asian pear in a store is, what, 5 or 6 times that size? Angel's checking things out. But they are so sweet. So sweet, crisp, and juicy. I love the things. As I said, I was looking online and you can make jam and whatever, but there was not enough there. By the time you peeled and cored those, there isn't much left. So maybe I will look at doing a pie or something with them. At any rate, that was what they produced this year, except for whatever that critter ate. And I've been picking 1 or 2 also every time I'm out here, enjoying them. So we'll move on to something else. Some of my rutabagas, Swedes, that we call turnips here, are starting to size up nicely. That's still smaller than I would like to see, but I don't like the huge one, so if that could grow another 1/3 or so, I'd be quite happy. They will withstand quite a bit of frost. The early frost doesn't bother them at all. It actually sweetens them. And as long as they're getting sunshine and the leaves keep growing, they will continue to increase in size. So perhaps by sometime in October I'll be able to pick and enjoy a few of them. You might see the nose of a certain dog who is sitting here patiently. I've just added some straw to 3 of the Ruth stoat beds in this area. You might see big green leaves sticking out here and there. I didn't bother to pull up the squash plants. I'll just let them die and compost underneath the straw over the winter. And up in the far right, you see some larger leaves. You see a cosmos in bloom up there. That is the rhubarb. Victoria, I think, is the variety that I grew from seed 3 years ago. I still have never used any of it. I wanted it to develop good roots, and it's grown beautifully this summer. So next year is going to be my harvesting of rhubarb year, I guess. I haven't put any straw around it, and I still have to add some more to the other beds in here. I've used up all that I bought the other day. I need to get a few more bales because I haven't added any to the Ruth stoat beds that are up by the greenhouse either. My carrots in the weed patch are doing quite well, and they withstand frost. They're fine even if the ground starts to freeze a little. You can cover them with straw and harvest them that way in the wintertime. I've never done that, but I've seen it done by other people. I just pulled 2 or 3 to have for dinner this evening. Get in there and show you the size if I can. Seems to be about, well, this one probably is one of the larger ones that I've had this year, but most of them seem to be fat and relatively short like that. I don't remember the variety. All I remember is that I have enough seed to last for several years. I bought pelletized seed. I really like that. You can see where you're planting them. You don't get them in too thickly. I thought originally that maybe I would not have carrots enough here to do any winter storage on, but I'm quite sure that I will now. I keep finding more and more, and I'm only down at the very beginning of the row where I've been pulling so far, so I'll get to do my wet shavings storage for them. And in my new cold room in the basement, which still isn't built, but I have the materials to build it with, so that's where my potatoes will be going also once they're completely dry. I'll rub the dirt off of them, and I have several large paper bags that I'll store those in and put them on a shelf in my cold room once I get it constructed. Not that it's a big job, but I've been quite busy with hen houses and whatever lately. And it's a bumper year for chestnuts on my red flowering horse chestnut tree. Unfortunately, a horse chestnut, you can't eat the things. They're, I guess, poisonous or whatever. Anyway, they tell you not to eat them. Lots of chestnuts on it this year. So it didn't seem to mind the hot, dry summer at all, because it must have its roots down deep enough where it was still getting lots of moisture, I guess. Well, I added fresh straw to this bed, which is also a Ruth stoat bed now, but it's for fruit. I have 2 gooseberry bushes that I added this year, and a number of different kinds of raspberries that didn't really produce very much this year. It's their first year, but they've grown some nice big canes, which hopefully means they will produce next year. And I want to add a lot more of them. I got a few from Cornhill Nursery, north of here, up around Sussex, New Brunswick. And I'm impressed with the plants as soon as I saw them, and the tallest ones that you see there are those. There's even been a few raspberries on some of them. So they were all varieties that have been developed here in Atlantic Canada, so I guess it makes sense that that's what you should be planting. And they were very inexpensive, $2 a plant, I think. So if the price is still reasonable, I want to order a lot more, and I'll fill this full of raspberry canes. It also has my alpine strawberries in there, which, you know, produce a few strawberries, but not enough that you could do anything with them. I eat them as treats when I'm out in the garden. Well, there's still a few things hanging on in the greenhouse here. I always maintain that it doesn't take a frost for a lot of plants to go in decline. I think it is more to do with decreasing hours of daylight. The beets seem to be doing quite well still. I think if I remember rightly, there were 22 seedlings or clumps of seedlings that I planted there. Let's see if I can find one to show you. They're not huge, but they are starting to produce a small beet. And that's what they're grown for, is for baby beets. I did let some grow larger earlier in the summer, and they did quite well and tasted just as good as any other variety, but these are grown, or supposedly, for market gardeners. Let's see if I can get that in there. That's a clump of two. One isn't doing so well, but that one is, you know, I don't know, inch across anyway, so it makes a nice baby beet to eat along with the greens, and the greens are still looking very good here, so I will let them get a little larger, but then I'll have baby beets and greens to enjoy. I had someone ask me, or a couple people ask me, about the Bishop's Crown chilies that I bought. One plant, which is enormous. It's probably 3 feet tall and 3 or 4 feet wide here. It's producing, it's a relatively small one, I guess, at, pick another one that's not shaped like I thought they should be. I guess they have to get bigger before they're shaped better. I had 3 or 4 that were fairly large. They still weren't ripening, but I picked them along with some of my chile de arbol and jalapeno chilies, because I made a second batch of my hot and sweet zucchini relish that I love. So I have a dozen jars of that going into the winter. I don't think anything will actually ripen in here. I'm going to leave them until it gets so cold they don't grow in here anymore, just to see. But some of the chili de arbol were starting to turn red, some of the ones that I picked. I don't have anything that's red now. I'll give you a look at them. Hopefully you can see something there. Arbol in Spanish means tree, and they're well named. Mine have fallen over from the weight, but they were at least 3 feet tall and sort of tree-like with branches at the top. I don't know what you can see and what you can't see, but the ones that are left here now are, what, a couple of inches long, I guess. I don't think I see any big ones. I've picked all the big ones and used them, but I'm going to let these keep growing. Hopefully I get some that ripen, so we can... That one's just barely starting to turn a little on the end. I'd like them to ripen so I can save some seeds at least. And if they really ripened, I would dry them and turn them into a pepper powder type thing. Peperoncino in Italian, I guess. So as you can see, the tomato plants are really in decline. There are still some plants that have quite a few green ones on. I probably should take all the leaves off and just let them ripen, but they will continue ripening until it gets cold enough that it destroys them, but that's quite a ways off, hopefully. Usually after we have a frost, our first frost, we get warmer weather afterwards, and it's, you know, a week or two more before you see any more frost. Fingers crossed that that happens again this year. Well, I think that's about everything. I am getting a few cucumbers still, but they're also looking kind of ratty, but they've been amazing, the amount of cucumbers that those European gherkins have produced. So I'll close this down and say thank you very much for watching.